everybody in New York at every LGBT rights rally and at every spiritual event that I've ever been to in New York. Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum.
It's hard to believe, but in 1963, it depended if you were an African American on what state you were in, what rights you received. In one state, you would have to drink from a different water fountain, sit on the back of the bus, have difficulty voting, children would be separated, and in another state you would be given full rights, legally at least. In 1963, if you were an African American and you moved from one state to the other, your entire status as a citizen would change. The 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act changed all of that. Right now, GLBT Americans have the same legal status as African Americans did in 1963. It depends on which state we're in based on what rights we have, what city we're in. If we move from one city to a suburb, if we move from one state to another, we all of a sudden, somehow, our humanity is given a different status based on where we live in which state. This is not a states' rights issue. If we are to be truly a country of law and of respect for all of our citizens, it's time for the federal government to step up and say, we don't leave this to one state or another to vote individually on whether some of its citizens will be treated equally. We as a national government, we take a stand, as we did in 1964, to say that it was not up to Mississippi State Legislature, it was not up to Alabama governors to decide on the status of its African American citizens. As a country, we are bigger and better than that. And the time is now that we do the same thing for the LGBT community as individuals and as a community. State by state should make no difference. The federal government should be in the leadership of this issue now. Biggest obstacles the so-called liberal community experiences is the right-wing religious community. I say that anybody who uses anti-gay rhetoric in the name of God is blaspheming God's name. And we have to have religious voices who are out there saying exactly that. We are all created in God's image. We're not asking any church, any mosque, any synagogue to do anything about gay marriage that they don't want to do. And I want to say one more thing about that. This is not about only marriage equality. This is about human equality. And that's why it's important to amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act so that we move beyond an understanding of gay people being subject to state's law to gay people really being full American citizens. Thank you very much.
We at the Power Online call on all people of conscience to join with us to sign the petition and to join our movement at www.poweronline.org. And we look forward to seeing you and your colleagues at some time in the future.